Today on Locked On Rockies, some good news about the Colorado Rockies prospects. A pitcher lands in the top 10, and the Rockies have multiple top 100 prospects. Plus, is the international complex turning around as well?
You are Locked On Rockies, your daily Colorado Rockies podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Rock on Rockies fans, welcome into the Locked On Rockies podcast for today, the 19th day of January in the year 2024. I'm your host of the Locked On Rockies podcast, Paul Holden, bringing you your daily Colorado Rockies talk right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where you can find your team every day. And if your team is the Colorado Rockies, guess what? You're in the right spot, because that's what we do around here is talk Rockies baseball here on the Locked On Podcast Network, which is available on all your favorite streaming services or on the Locked On Rockies YouTube channel, where you can be part of the show. You can fire off your Rockies hot takes. You can let me know what's on your mind when it comes to the Colorado Rockies. Marco says easily over when we're talking about over 60.5 wins for the Colorado Rockies. I agree that their ceiling is 70 wins, but I think they're poised for a strong second half when guys like Marquez and potentially Adele, Veen, and Romo being called up. Offensively, they look fine, and I'm high on a breakout for Tovar. I expect a full season of Nolan Jones to include a 25-25 or potentially 30-30 result. Reserving the health of Chris Bryant and Blackmon is important, so save them to DH and Bryant able to play first. Maybe sign Gallo and platoon with Goodman to have a 40-plus home run right field, LOL. Just comes down to pitching and barring injuries. They look to have an actual staff. Is it good? But I'm hopeful for Quantrill, Freeland, and maybe Feltner. I think they come in at 68/69 and just maybe touch 70 wins. Great comment there from Marco. I got to agree. I agree with a lot of the stuff in there. If you want to let me know what's on your mind, let me know what's going on with your thoughts on Rockies baseball, just tune in to the Locked On Rockies podcast. Find us on your favorite streaming services or on the Locked On Rockies YouTube channel, where your likes, your subscription, your comments, all that stuff really, really helps the show. We're talking prospects here, just prospects more of the prospects that have been making some noise of late, which is good things. I mean, that the Rockies are seeming to have a nice little bump when it comes to the farm, and it's because I was a little nervous with the state of the farm system because of how many young guys were called up, how many guys the Rockies were calling for and using last year anyway. So it's good to see these news, and I was pleased to see how many players the Rockies had in the top 100. Would I, of course, like to see more players in the top 100? Yes, but anyway, the Rockies having multiple players and not in the top 20 per se, but still at least some numbers in the top 100. And I think that means something as well. So let's dive into everything. Let's talk prospects. Oh, we'll also check in on the Todd Helton Hall of Fame race here. But before we dive into everything today, Gametime is today's sponsor. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Okay, so with the Rockies here, one of the things that was that's exciting to me is that the Rockies' top 5 prospects here, almost all of them have found themselves on the top 100 prospects in all of baseball. So the Rockies prospects that have found themselves in the top 100 include Adele Amador. We also see Yankel Fernandez is in there. Let's see here. Sorry, there's a lot of names on this list. Jordan Beck and Zach Veen all cracking the top 100. Coincidentally, who are the 5 Rockies top prospects? Otto Amador, Yankel Fernandez, Chase Dollander, Jordan Beck, and Zach Veen. So Dollander, the only one not on that top 100 list, but the good news is when you look at another ranking there for there was a MLB pipeline post that has Dollander as one of the top right-handed pitching prospects, and I reached out to Lindsey Crosby to get a take. Unfortunately, I don't think he had time to get us the full take that he was hoping for, but this is what he said. when I asked on Dollander making MLB Pipeline's top right-handed pitching prospects here. And he says, I mean, he should. He was one of the best pitchers in college baseball in 22 and is primed for a rebuild of value and prospect prestige. That being said, he'll tank rather quickly if he stumbles out the gate in 2024. So that's something we're going to have to look there for Jase Dollander. But really, really excited. I mean, that's it's off season. It's all that, right? It's all, oh, I mean, can you really get that excited? Can you really get that pumped up by these prospect lists and all that stuff? Yes, you can. I mean, this is why this is what rebuilding is. This is what the Rockies should be looking for. And you know, as you scroll through the top 100, you see teams that have a lot more representation on here, but I was surprised. I was surprised to see that the Rockies had top 100 prospects. And it's good that Zach Bean is still being regarded as a top 100 prospect in the game, as someone that I think needs to kind of, we had a lot of hype for him, and then it cooled off, especially with those injuries. So we got to see them bounce back a little bit. But to see him bounce back, find himself into the top 100, and for the Rockies to have potentially the outfield of their future getting ready and building up and getting ready to go, that's another good sign. I mean, that's a strong sign that that the Rockies are going to be that the Rockies have made the right call when it comes to building up that outfield and getting up players that are going to bring potential. And really, the best news is that just barely missing in the top 20 of prospects. And I think that's an impressive thing. I mean, top 10 is obviously great, but top 20 still is a pretty good thing. And Amador just falls right outside the top 20 at the 21 ranked prospect. He's MLB ready. We're going to see Amador play this year. It's going to be really interesting to see how he factors in, what the Rockies do, but he's ready to go, and he's considered to be one of in the top quarter, the top echelon of prospects in baseball. I mean, the top quarter of players being in the top 25, and that's where Amador finds himself. It's encouraging. It's encouraging to see this. Again, we want to see more, yes, but this is the type of stuff that you sit there and you realize, all right, these are the moves that are making sense. These are the moves that do back up this draft and develop mindset that the Rockies have had before. Now it's got to pan out. Now it's got to work out. But at least on the surface level, this was welcomed news. This was news that encourages. Mixed in when you hear and when you see the Rockies farm system getting more positive press, getting more positive coverage here throughout this offseason. There have been things that have popped up here and there talking about how the Rockies farm system is back into a better spot. It's not a dominant spot. It's not going to be the best farm system in baseball, but it is something that you can sit there and be a little bit more encouraged by. And of course, on top of that, mixed in with the fact that the Rockies got another infielder that is highly regarded, coming up and nipping at the heels of the last infielder that they were bringing up and had star potential there in Brendan Rodgers. So really, again, it's not the most exciting thing, but it's encouraging, and it's really encouraging to see that Dollander is on that list of top 10 right-handed pitching prospects. And to elaborate on that, went over to Rock's Pile here, and here's Tanner Vogt and what he had to say. Dollander comes in 2 spots behind Rhett Lauder, a former 2023 first-round pick, just like Dollander. Ironically, Dollander was selected 2 spots behind Lauder. He checks in 2 spots ahead of 2023 high school first-rounder Noble Meyer as well. He is the highest-ranked right-handed pitcher in the NL West, 1 spot ahead of Padres pitcher Dylan Lesko. Dollander has tremendous upside and is someone that should become the ace of this staff eventually. MLB Pipeline gives Dollander high praise for his stuff. Dollander is a pitcher that the Rockies haven't had since the John Gray days and could potentially even have a higher ceiling. Rockies fans need to follow Dollander closely. He is a college arm, but struggled with walks in 2023. If he can get that back under control, he can prove to be a steal for the Rockies in the 2023 draft. We'll see how it pans out for Dollander. We'll see how it goes. But again, reasons to be encouraged, reasons to be excited. Okay, I want to talk a little bit about the international complex and a little bit more about these prospects. We'll also look to the Todd tracker as well, as it is going to come down to the absolute last second for our friend Todd Helton there at and in his Hall of Fame, candidacy, his acceptance, all that good stuff. It is going to be close. Before we get into that, we are going to take a quick break. So we'll do all that in segment number 2. Before we do that, got to tell you about some of the folks that help make this show possible, and that includes Gametime. Gametime's got you covered if you are looking for all your last-second ticket options, all your whatever you need when it comes to those last-minute tickets. Gametime's got you covered. I've used Gametime multiple times. It's gotten me into multiple events, and they got you covered, so you don't need to worry about getting tickets to the next big events. It's not just for sports, music, comedy, and theater events all near you. You can get deals for. They got last-minute tickets, flash deals, zone deals, all sorts of deals. Check it all out on the app. And one of my favorite things about it, they show you where you're sitting. Yes, you get an image of your seat so you can have complete peace of mind when it comes to your purchase. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON. That's code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. This is the Locked On Rockies podcast. We are free and streaming on your favorite streaming services, bringing you your daily Colorado Rockies podcast right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where you can find your team every day, where you make Locked On Rockies your first listen of the day. Really, really do appreciate that. Really do appreciate the offseason support. Y'all have tuned in force here this offseason. And I really, really do appreciate all of the support throughout this offseason as we continue to work our way closer and closer to not only the regular season, but spring training. It's right around the corner. It's going to be back before we know it. Hey, baseball is not the only exciting sports action going on the Locked On Podcast Network. You can check out the Locked On Sports Today channel on YouTube, which is the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Go to Locked On Sports Today and YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. All right, we're talking prospects. We were talking about how it's a good sign the Rockies got some prospects cracking the top 100. How the Rockies got Dollander, their pick there, is already getting props for his rankings there. Rockies might have found a good one there in terms of Chase. But I wanted to talk a little bit about the international complex as well here, and wanted to read from Thomas Harding's Rockies Beat here newsletter from Thomas Harding. I just wanted to read a part of it about it's titled here, International Investment Paying Off for the Rocks here. So I want to just read part of it here that gives a good intro of the Rockies and how they've been able to have success, especially in the pitching department from Latin America. But I want to read here. But the current farm system shows that the Rockies have had more success with Latin American position players. Infield Adel Amador and outfield Yankel Fernandez are two of the top players on the team's top 30 prospects list per MLB Pipeline, and 5 of the top 15 are hitters. The only international pitcher signed as an amateur in the top 30 is righty Jordy Vargas, who underwent Tommy John right elbow surgery in 2023 and will spend 2024 regaining health and strength. The first 2 days of the 2024 international signing period have brought, among other hurlers, 2 highly ranked right-handed starting pitchers from the Dominican Republic, Oscar Pujols and Gregory Sanchez. Pujols ranked 35th among the international prospects, according to MLB Pipeline, while Sanchez, who just recently turned 17, already possesses fastball velocity that any major leaguer would covet. The Rockies have accelerated their pursuit of pitchers since Bill Schmidt took over as general manager in 2021, using the MLB draft and trade acquisitions to build out that unit. But this week shows that they haven't sworn off Latin American pitching talent. With the signing period running through December 15th, time will tell if the Rockies concentrate on signing a volume of pitchers, but Pujols and Sanchez represent quality. We are always looking for pitching, said Rolando Fernandez, Rockies vice president of international scouting and development. The difference between the international market and the draft is that there is a draft. So there's plenty of time for scouts to see the pitchers at a higher competition level. So there's a lot more high school and college pitching in the draft. But if we see a guy who can start at a particular level and he has a power arm, we go after him. We go back to Baldo, Corpus, Morales. We haven't forgotten about that, but there is competition in the international market. Everybody's trying to do the same thing because of lack of starting pitching. I love this. I absolutely love this. One of the things that was frustrating in this experience, one of the obvious, it wasn't too frustrating because you put things in context, but take all the Japanese pitchers, the Japanese players, especially pitchers that were signed this offseason. You never heard the Rockies connected to them. And I was getting really bummed by that because I think the Rockies are a team that could benefit from being a team that is very aggressive when it comes to the international market. And to hear that they have been, and to hear that they have that focus on pitchers mixed in with the history of successful Rockies pitchers coming from that philosophy, those are all good signs. I love this. I really do think that going with these international picks, working on the international reputation, it's a way for the Rockies to sidestep, to get around their reputation, their in-country, their in-league representation, and their reputation. I think I just repeated myself that twice. The Rockies, I'm sure the reputation of the Rockies grows and goes into the international markets, but I don't think as much. I think the Rockies are able to provide opportunities, to provide to go in and provide a spot for these players, and they aren't shying away from that. I think that shows that the Rockies can be an interesting team. The Coors Field curse isn't going to carry over as much to players that aren't seeing and experiencing the narrative of Coors Field and the Colorado Rockies all the time. I'm sure that they do. I'm sure that they know about the narrative of the Rockies. They know baseball. They know ball. They probably know a good chunk about the pro teams. But at the same time, listen to the names that was brought up for the Rockies, with the Rockies having success in going after international pitching. Ubaldo Jimenez, Franklin Morales, Manuel Corpus, Julius Chacin. And on top of that, that includes also German Marquez, Antonio Senzatella, Carlos Estevez. All strong, good Rockies pitchers. You can have your reservations about them, but you can't say that any of those guys were quote unquote bad pitchers. All of those pitchers have had success in their career. Ubaldo Jimenez is going to be and forever will be one of the greatest Rockies pitchers of all time. Still holds the coveted only no-hitter in Rockies history, mixed in with very solid pitchers in Morales, Corpus, and Chacin. Not knock your socks off, but good, solid pitchers that definitely help the Rockies, and mixed in with the fact that the pitcher that has the most potential to be the greatest Rockies pitcher of all time in German Marquez. This stuff matters. This stuff is important, and this is how the Rockies can continue to be creative. This is an area in which the Rockies need to continue to build up and develop in. Next time the next round of Japanese players are posting and Korean players are posting, I want the Rockies in the mix. I want them to continue to show that they are going to be a team that's going to go after some of these international big agents. You weren't going to get Yamamoto. You weren't going to get the big guys. I understand that. But what about the Korean or Japanese league, Ubaldo? What about those level of pitchers that might want to post and come over and play? I just want to see the Rockies more connected to some of those players the next time it comes around. This year, I wasn't that surprised to see the Rockies weren't all that involved or connected to any of these players, any of those players. There's far too much of a need for starting pitching across all of baseball. So they weren't. You knew that wasn't going to happen. So it was something that really just kind of stuck out. And reading this was really encouraging here from Thomas Harding. And I know it's coming from the team. I know it's PR stuff, but regardless, at the end of when you're looking at these things, when you're hearing the Rockies farm system is improving, the Rockies are staying aggressive when it comes to adding international talent. The Rockies have 5 top 100 prospects. Not knock your socks off. I get it. But these are good, positive storylines. These are good things to be talking about for the Rockies. These are good signs for the future of the team. It's got to pay out. It's got to pan out. They got to talk more about, it's baseball. There's a long time in between these things, but it's really interesting to see where this team might be if this next big crop of prospects that have found themselves in the top 100 mesh with these young guys that are playing right now when they're the veterans, and then these young guys are at. Who knows what the Rockies might be? The Rockies could be loaded with a lot of young talent. The question always, though, will that pitching last? Will that pitching survive? We shall see. It's going to be an interesting season. It really, really is, and it is definitely directly related to the fact that the Rockies are a much more interesting team when it comes to the farm system and when it comes to bringing new players into the mix as well. Okay, so good news there for the Rockies. Like I said, there's teams that have plenty more top 100 prospects when you scroll through. I think the Orioles are the one I see the most here. The Mets got a lot of them. But again, 5 players in the top 100 is a good sign. It is. It really, really is. So, all right. Let's check in on the Todd Helton tracker. Let's see where we're at when it comes to Todd Helton and the Hall of Fame, and just give some brief thoughts there. As next week, we are going to be finding out if Todd Helton did indeed make the Hall. So we are going to dive into all of that and more coming up here on Locked On Rockies and in segment number 3. Before we dive into everything, I want to tell you about some of the people that help make this show possible, and that includes FanDuel. FanDuel's got you covered throughout the playoffs and for all your sports action. The playoffs? What playoffs? Well, duh, the NFL playoffs. Come on. Your football. You know what's going on out there. Right now, if you head over to America's #1 sportsbook, FanDuel, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. All you got to do is place a $5 bet. Win or lose, just place that $5 bet and you're getting $150 in bonus bets on the FanDuel app when you use FanDuel.com/locked-on. The app is so easy to use, and there are so many different ways to bet, like the live same-game parlays. Find bets in the new Explore tab. And if you want to see the some parlays maybe before the game, the ones that aren't live, you can find popular parlays in the Parlay Hub. Love me a parlay. Lots more available to you on the FanDuel app and on FanDuel.com/locked-on. So visit FanDuel.com/locked-on and make your first bet a layup because you get $150 in bonus bets. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. This is the Locked On Rockies podcast. We're free and streaming on your favorite streaming services, bringing you your daily Colorado Rockies talk right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where you can find your team every day. If your team is the Colorado Rockies, guess what? You're in the right spot. I am scrolling through right now Ryan Thibodeau's X presence here, and I'm seeing a lot of Todd Helton. Now, we know that Todd Helton right now, as of recording this, is basically +0. The people that have dropped the votes, he's got enough new votes to make him net 0. If that trend continues, he will not make it to the Hall of Fame. +0, I don't think is going to be enough, especially when you consider last year the fact that he was at like 72%. These random ballots that had Todd Helton, that then dropped Todd Helton, I'm not going to understand. I really, truly am not going to understand it. I've seen small hall arguments. I have seen there's more time arguments, but it just, I don't know. I don't want to get too in the weeds of the Hall of Fame election process, but I just want to say one thing about small hall. I think the Hall of Fame, no matter what, will remain small. Even if people put more than 3 players on their ballots. Even if people have a ballot where they believe a lot of these players in the grand scheme of things, the Hall of Fame is still going to be small. It's still going to be sacred. I think there's too much of this that allows, well, if we let Todd Helton in, we're letting anybody in. You're letting in a 60-plus WAR player, somebody that has stats that compete with Hall of Famers around him. I mean, there is legit arguments here. But small Hall, I just feel like that loses steam. Out of one, a new crop of baseball players comes in every year, increasing the overall total number of baseball players that have played in Major League Baseball. And you're not bringing in these massive Hall of Fame classes every single year. The percentage of players in the Hall of Fame comparative to all Major League Baseball players that have ever played a game at the Major League level, that percentage is always going to be small. It's always going to be a small haul. And you can't just sit here and dwell on just the greats of the past and ignore the 90s and the mid 2000s greatness. That's one a lot of people will turn their nose up to the greatness that was happening during the steroid era, and that's a problem. I mean, I'm not going back into my takes of steroids and Hall of Fame and all that stuff. People know. I believe that you are still eligible for I believe Barry Bonds is a Hall of Famer. I believe that there are still ways to look at steroid users and you can look at their performance and still say they were really good. Mixed in with the context of steroids were all over baseball. It's the players in steroids are just as much at fault for Major League Baseball's inaction for taking down steroids and making it a bigger deal before they did. They knew. There's a lot of evidence that suggests that Major League Baseball knew a lot more about what was going on than they actually let on. My point is this: the Hall is going to be small forever. Baseball is already hard enough for people to go through the entire minor league system, make it to the majors, and then find a spot to consistently play in the major league roster to get qualifications, to get numbers for Hall of Fame. Because what's going to happen when we get to this era of baseball or recent eras of baseball, when offensive numbers are down and they compare them to other players? The Hall will always be small. I just, again, plead the writers and the voters for the Hall of Fame to do the appropriate research, to be a homer everybody's got a little homer in them, especially baseball writers. I'm a homer. I'm one of the biggest Rockies homers that exists. But that pans out. And it's just, it goes back to doing your due diligence. You have a long time to fill out this ballot. I believe that every single player on that ballot deserves your attention, deserves you, the voter, to go through and write and see, okay, here are the numbers. Here are the road home splits. Because if your thing with Todd Helton is Coors Field, you're immediately negated by his road performance. Immediately. The Coors Field argument holds zero water for Coors Field, or for Todd Helton. It does. The road numbers immediately counteract that, because you can't sit there and just say, well, he's only good at home, because he wasn't. He was. It's the overall player. And I'm not going to lie. I didn't want to dive too much into this side of it, but Patrick Saunders did go out on X and said, and this was, I think, a couple of days ago, so it might have changed, but the actual numbers. But he goes to point out of, I think it was like 25 to 27 ballots that were publicly known that don't have Todd Helton on the ballot, 20 of them are from the East Coast. It's just admitting that you didn't watch the player. And I get it. The Rockies had a lot of 10 p.m. first pitch start times. The internet wasn't around. You're not seeing as many clips. I understand that. But when your job is to cover the game of baseball, when your job is to understand and carry the weight of this Hall of Fame ballot, You need to do your due diligence about every single player on the roster. This is about every single player on that Hall of Fame ballot, not just Todd Helton, not just every single player, regardless of market, deserves to have their shot and deserves to be fully studied and evaluated, just like the Yankees and Red Sox players are, just like the East Coast teams, just like the California teams. Your market size should not matter when it comes to getting in the Hall of Fame. It should be your performance on the field, and without a doubt, I don't have the only inkling of doubt for Todd Helton was his 2 mistakes off the field. That's the only doubt I have for Todd Helton as a Hall of Famer. And personally, I think that that's something you can discuss, you can have in the legacy of Todd Helton. But I'm going to go ahead and assume there's people in that hall with a lot more risky actions and past than Todd Helton. I'm going to be sweating bullets about this announcement until it happens. It's going to be really, really, really close. According to the Hall of Fame tracker, of course, Ryan Thibodeau and all those people doing great work when it comes to putting together this amazing spreadsheet of all of the Hall of Fame votes, doing an incredible work for all of us here. Currently, Todd Helton has 83% of the known votes as of this morning here. So if he does get that, he is going to he will get the vote. It's just going to be really, really close, really, really close. We'll be keeping an eye on it, and of course, we'll be talking about it all here on Locked On Rockies when it happens. Folks, that's going to do it for today's episode. Thank you so much for tuning in and making us your first listen of the day. Really, really do appreciate that. You can find us on your favorite streaming services. Woof, sorry. Weird hiccups. Weird bubble that just kind of formed in there. You can find us on YouTube, where your comments, your subscriptions, all the most helpful ways to help the show grow. Hey, for your second listen, go check out Locked On MLB, Locked On Broncos, Locked On Avalanche, Locked On Nuggets, and Locked On Buffs. Got you covered for more Colorado sports coverage. And until next time, this is Paul Holden saying so long from the Locked On Rockies podcast.